Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there are many, many podcasts you could choose from, so that you choose us is not a small thing. Thank you. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks, as always, for your written reviews at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I want to tell you about my friend in Cincinnati named John Ruhlman. Now, he runs a company called U.S. Medical Plan. And John has been a sponsor of mine and a friend of mine for a long while. And he has gotten calls from this audience, including calls from my own family, calls from colleagues and friends of mine who have shopped with him their current health insurance plan. And he has saved friends and family thousands of dollars, literally. Let me give you a for example. I have a friend who bought private health insurance for his family. His daughter had some special health needs that cost him quite a bit of money a month to get premiums covered for all of them. John found him identical coverage and saved him $2,000 a month. That's jaw-dropping money. My parents called John for a supplemental health insurance plan for their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. Now, every nickel is precious, particularly when you're sitting on an income that you've got to count on for the rest of your days and you're counting your change. $400 is a lot of money. All right, so that's what John can do for you. Or maybe if you have no health insurance at all and you think it's too expensive, I can't afford it right now. He has over 100 different private health insurance companies all over the country that he shops and compares so that he gets you the best rates and never cheats you on coverage, by the way. It doesn't mean it's some scant coverage. Great rates, great coverage. Let John and his team at usmedicalplan.com go to work for you today. You can also call 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321, usmedicalplan.com. There is nobody, simply nobody, I would rather talk to about what I believe to be the biggest scandal in American history, and I just don't think that's an overstatement. Maybe she does, but I trust her because there's nobody that did better work reporting on the January 6th scandal, and I suspect she'd concur that really all of it is an outgrowth of what has now been uncovered by Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI in this report officially released as of Friday. She's Julie Kelly, and if you don't follow her on X, first of all, at Julie_Kelly, the number 2 on X. If you don't follow her on Substack, you should, juliekelly.substack.com. So Julie, first of all, welcome back.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on. So good to be with you. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I know you're busy, so let me dive right into it. And that is this, do you confirm, can you concur? I mean, does it get bigger than what Tulsi Gabbard is now confirming? I think we've all known, but she confirmed in document form on Friday.
No, I mean, I completely agree with what you just said. And this has been the biggest political scandal in American history. I wouldn't even really label it a political scandal. It goes far beyond that. This was not just an attempt to sabotage the president and what our friend Lee Smith calls the permanent coup. This was orchestrated with the national news media, the most influential news outlets in the world, to deceive the American people and really to deceive the world, including our allies and our enemies, to believe that Donald Trump was compromised, that the Russians had some sort of what they called compromat on him, and that his presidency was illegitimate. And Chris, to the extent that it was successful, it was, because it definitely undermined the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency under the special counsel Robert Mueller investigation, which really hamstrung the president. It's amazing he accomplished anything, to be honest, occupied the time of his administration, Congress, and the media and the American people. And now we know for a fact it was based on absolutely nothing but manufactured evidence and intelligence out of the Obama White House.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but I bring this up only in light of this. And that is last week and the week previous, when there was a lot of inside the tent shooting over another issue, My question is President Trump's frustration, frankly, is it that he knew this was coming and that there really isn't anything bigger? And I don't mean that the other thing isn't significant. What I mean is, if you don't tackle this, if this isn't dealt with, you don't have a country. You have one party rule. You have a coup. You have a party taking over another party, and no election really matters again, right? So nothing matters more. And I don't wonder if Trump knew that, knew Cash, Pam Bondi, the others were working on this. This was coming, and the other thing maybe got out in front of it. That's an interpretation, just a guess. Yours?
I don't know. That's a really good question, Chris. I'm not sure how much he and his inner circle were aware that this was coming, while the other issue was all of us were fixated on the other issue. But I will say, Chris, I do think that there is a tie between the other issue and this, and that is lack of transparency, behind the scenes machinations to protect very powerful people. I think our side believes that this was an attempt to protect the Clintons and other powerful Democrats. The left sees it as a way to protect what they believe is the president and his ties to you-know-who. So I think that they're connected in a way, but all of it pales in comparison to, yes, what Tulsi Gabbard released on Friday. Her comments that she made over the weekend, I think, accurately describing this as a treasonous conspiracy. We already have a criminal referral from CIA Director John Ratcliffe for James Comey and John Brennan related to that bogus January 2017 ICA that was the product of what Tulsi Gabbard released on Friday. Now, for people looking for those documents, I do have them on my Substack at Declassified with Julie Kelly. People are looking and they want to actually see the records, 100 or so records that she declassified and released. I have them on my Substack for people who are interested.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, please go check out Julie Kelly's Substack, Declassified with Julie Kelly, juliekelly.substack.com. So, you and I have talked about Pam Bondi before. I asked you when she was the nominee. We've talked many, many times about who would replace Gates. Gates, interestingly, by the way, I like to remind this audience, Gates comes out on his show and says she's fantastic, don't doubt her, which kind of floored me, given the way people were so enthusiastic about him and sure that he was the better pick. But anyway, what is your ruling at this hour on her and the fact that Dan, there was some talk that maybe he had it. As I understand it, he's fine or things have been tempered. I mean, do you still have faith in this trinity of Dan and Cash and Pam Bondi?
I do. And I will say that I think her mishandling of the Epstein matter really has obfuscated some of the good things that are happening at the Department of Justice and the FBI. I mean, almost on a daily basis, we are getting reports really whining on the left, like the New York Times and Washington Post, about all of these firings and dismissals at the Department of Justice and the FBI. So we just saw last week that Maureen Comey, the daughter of Jim Comey, had been fired. This is on top of dozens of prosecutors and DOJ employees who have been removed, who were seen as political operatives rather than Department of Justice employees, prosecutors, investigators, et cetera. So I think the last toll, there were 1,500 or so, a combination of being fired and also taking advantage of that kind of early buyout, the reduction in force policy of the president. So there's some really positive things happening, and certainly at the FBI as well. You've seen field office chiefs who have been removed, who either were involved in January 6th prosecution, the Mar-a-Lago raid, the investigations into the president. I think that about 24 or so of Jack Smith's, the special counsel team, also have been dismissed from the Department of Justice. So this is sort of happening on a rolling basis. And this is very encouraging, in addition to how they're redirecting resources away from prosecuting their political enemies to fighting crime, keeping the border secure, and helping cities and states with drug trafficking, human trafficking, et cetera. So I think her mishandling of the Epstein matter publicly really frustrated the president. Not her handling, but just the whole matter. To your point, we could see that kind of spilling out, the president being very frustrated that this was such a topic of interest. But look, they're not over the hump with the other issue, as we like to call it. People, I think, are rightfully paying attention to the new releases in the Russiagate hoax, but also still expecting more disclosures from the other matter as well.
I think people are wondering, and I ask it rhetorically at my newsletter I did yesterday on the Harrumph Society, is Pam Bondi of the stuff? Does she have the stuff? Can she? Will she? Does she have the nerve or the legal standing to bring charges? Will we see people charged? That's, you know this better than anybody. This is what people in our audiences are desperate. They want justice. They want to see powerful people who have been abusing their power brought to justice. And all eyes are on Pam Bondi. Will she be the one to bring the charges? So do you think she's made of the stuff to do so?
I think that she is. And I think that there's no way around this at this point. With everything that we've known over the past 9 years, what are we, 9 years away from the opening of Crossfire Hurricane? Seems impossible for all of us who are covering it, to still be unearthing evidence about how the President Obama and his key team concocted the whole thing and then deceive the American people with it. So I think that she actually will. I think she's also got a very good team around her. Todd Blanche, her the deputy attorney general, and others around her. I think she's got a pretty good team there. But the president ultimately is the boss, and the president wants to see indictments. And I'm sure that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, now, of course, they don't make the prosecuting decisions, but they have collected and continue to collect evidence. Remember that Kash Patel, it's very important also, we need to give credit to former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, who was the one originally, amidst blowback from even his own party leaders. He, along with Kash Patel, who was his chief investigator, really blew the lid off of the Russiagate scandal, the bogus Steele dossier, the funding from the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, the fact that Christopher Steele was not just this former British intelligence official, but he was also a Russian lobbyist lobbying for Oleg Deripaska. He was an FBI informant. I mean, this guy is as dirty as you could possibly get. And so it was Devin Nunes and his team, including Kash Patel, who blew the lid off of this, and Kash Patel also being a victim of the surveillance state himself. So if there's anyone in the DOJ, FBI is part of DOJ, who wants some accountability and, dare I say, retribution for what was done, I would put Kash Patel at the top of the list. So I'm sure he'll be pushing internally for charges as well.
I'm so glad you said that, and I'll close by making that point with you. I don't think there are people assembled quite like this group that have been directly persecuted by this very system, this very corrupt system. I can't imagine there are people more close to it and more interested in justice than the very people in charge. Maybe say Pam Bondi, but I mean, Kash and certainly President Trump himself, he's accomplishing a great deal. I've said before how Donald Trump is not driven to distraction with trying to figure out why he was nearly murdered and his home raided. I don't know how he achieves anything but focusing on this, quite frankly, but he is. And aren't we grateful? Listen, we're grateful for you, Julie. I know you're so busy and that you could make time for us. Thank you.
Always.
People can go to your Substack and read, right? Anytime, anywhere, all day long.
Yes, for sure, Chris. Thank you so much. You've been such a good friend and supporter, and always happy to join you. And I'm sure I will be talking to you again soon.
Back again for Balance of Nature. And in the Maha movement, one thing we all care about is what's in the container, the ingredients. You flip that thing over, and if you can't pronounce it and you don't recognize it, you put it back. I've seen my kids doing this now. They're very health conscious that way. I like that. And the next generation seems to be more so. And that's why I tell them balance of nature, and you can feel good about it too. Balance of nature is just that. It's nothing more than natural. Fruit and vegetable, plucked right from the soil. No binders, no additives, no fillers. Harvested ingredients that are freeze-dried into a fine powder, and then they use an advanced vacuum cold process to better preserve the nutritional value in that powder. You can know with confidence that you're talking about 31 ingredients that are strictly fruits and vegetables. Every single day, that's what you get in your balance of nature. Imagine a platter with 31 different fruits and vegetables on it. Join me. Take some balance of nature and get healthy. Use that discount code CHRIS. 35% off plus free shipping when you do. You got to use the discount code CHRIS, though. All right, so here it is again, the number 800-2468-751. Use the discount code CHRIS or order online, balanceofnature.com. Discount code CHRIS to get that 35% off plus free shipping. I was on a call with some people on Monday when this whole thing with Tulsi Gabbard releasing the Obama information, the Obama involvement, the intelligence agencies and Obama's involvement in trying to frame Donald Trump in 2016 throughout his first term. And really, it continued through the Hunter Biden laptop and beyond. They were trying to discredit Donald Trump as being some sort of Russian stooge. This has been an ongoing story. Anybody who's been paying attention, it's been happening for years. But I was on a call with some people who voted for Donald Trump, but these are the smartest people in the room. These are people who like to impress you by being reasonable, even though they voted Trump, and even though they don't have a like for Obama and they don't like Obama's policies, they want to be reasonable. And I'm starting to hear from more of you people who want to be reasonable now. Let's be reasonable. Let's be thoughtful about this. Let's not get lost in Obama. If I hear one more person tell me that we ought to be reasonable and just disregard Barack Obama's role in any of this because, well, he's a former president and presidential immunity, and let's not waste time. There are so many other people. Look, I'm not Barack Obama's defense attorney. I don't know every letter of every law. I don't know. I don't know what presidential immunity means after a president is out of office and he continues to conspire with other people to frame a sitting president. I don't know. I don't know. All I do know is, after this president that got 77 million votes despite being nearly murdered twice, despite being dragged through multiple courts of law under false pretenses, despite his home being raided, the perpetual lawfare, the 2 impeachments, the framing of being a Russian asset, you're now asking me, let's be smart. Let's not lose our heads here. I think it's a waste of time to go after Obama. That's what the smart set keeps telling me, Fast Eddie. It's a waste of time. Let's stop talking about Obama. That's distasteful. He's a former president, after all. I was starting to hear that from a good number of smart set types, and I know exactly what they're doing. They want to keep credibility in the room, particularly with their Beltway, Cologne and Cufflink, Wood, Floor and Fern, NPR listening Republican set. You know, the type that say, well, I'm a fiscal conservative, but I really don't get involved in the social issues. We still have those Republicans. Those are the same people that say, let's not talk about Barack Obama. He's a former president after all, and sitting presidents have immunity. So Thurston and Lovey Howell. I'm sorry, I have a distaste for these people after all that we've been through. You know what I'm saying? I have a distaste for people that say, let's not discuss Obama and Biden and Hillary Clinton. Let's not discuss them, even though they have weaponized this government against you and me in meaningful ways, including up to and including nearly costing us our jobs if we didn't take a shot they wanted us to take. I'm not feeling charitable to the former power center, Fast Eddie. You know what I'm saying?
No. I mean, yes, I know what you're saying.
My blood pressure is starting to rise. I don't want smart people telling me, let's be smart about this. I mean, we can talk about Comey and Clapper and Brennan, but let's not talk about Obama. What do you say to people that say, let's not discuss Obama, presidential immunity and all? What do you say?
Chris, it's again, it goes back to the IRS targeting of conservatives, all right? That's step one. He used the federal government against us. Unbelievable. Then we get to this Russian collusion hoax that almost derailed an entire election. We're talking, and then now we know that Biden wasn't even in charge. So the people around Obama and Obama were in charge, and yes, they almost forced us to take a shot to keep our jobs, to keep our income. No, I'm not charitable. No, they haven't been.
So this is where my blood pressure starts to rise, and for the first time in a while, I feel inclined to pipe up in mixed company. Now, on Monday, I was on a call where this started. And instead of getting angry, I just said, "Oh, I've got to run, pretty busy. Bye now." Hung up and then privately stewed. By last night, I started getting notes from people telling me that other show hosts are saying, it's a waste of time to talk about Obama. And because other show hosts, naturally, here's another thing you need to know about me. Don't reach out to me and tell me what another host's opinion is and why I ought to adopt that opinion. I don't care, not even a little bit, what another host's opinion is. God bless them, they're entitled to whatever opinion they want. But if there are hosts out there in the conservative space telling you, we really ought not be discussing Obama because presidential immunity, you can save that for that show. I'm not interested in it. That's not where I am. Now, do I think we're going to frog march Barack Obama off to prison or something? I don't. Do I think they're even going to successfully drag Obama to Capitol Hill to testify? No, I don't. But don't ask me to lay off him. Don't ask me because it's just the decent, smart thing to do to not discuss Barack Obama. Screw that noise. I don't want to hear it. Barack Obama was the ringleader of this national deception, this national fraud. He was the ringleader, no doubt about it. So you tell me there's no legal recourse? Okay, I'm not here to debate that with you because I'm not in DOJ, I'm not an attorney. I don't know. But don't ask me to stop talking about it. Don't waste your time, people say. But do you believe that somebody would tell me not to waste my time with talking about the ringleader, the most divisive president we have had in maybe ever?
2 minutes.
Give me number 3026 here. Here's President Trump yesterday talking about the one, His Holiness, Barack Obama.
They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. When we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and Tulsi says she's got more to come, incidentally. But that's President Trump yesterday. What Obama did, he says, is critical. Criminal, and he's not going to let it go. And I have to say, I said this yesterday on X, if I'm Donald Trump, how in the world he's managed to achieve 6 months of gains and achievements that he has, how he's doing trade deals and traveling around the world and striking conversations with the Middle East, the amazing accomplishments Donald Trump has had in 6 months, and not discuss this. That's why I could never be president of the United States. You try to kill me twice and raid my home and drag me through court and frame me as a Russian asset, and then I win. I'm doing nothing but wanting to settle scores and get even. He's going to work every day. We're just now talking about settling scores. So you heard Donald Trump say yesterday that Obama has been caught directly, and what they did was very criminal. You heard Tulsi Gabbard say, heading into the weekend, she used the word seditious conspiracy. She used the word treason. Julie Kelly made the brilliant point this week that if we can use seditious conspiracy, a Civil War charge against J6ers, grandmothers, for walking into the Capitol, we can certainly use it here. But again, I know that makes smart people in the room very uncomfortable. People that, I don't know, seditious conspiracy is distasteful, Stigall. They talk with their bottom jaw. They go to Cologne and Cufflink, Rubber Chicken, Republican fundraiser dinners and tell you why you're a troglodyte for using words like seditious conspiracy and treason. Very distasteful. My portfolio. Those people I have no time for, and if you're one of those people, this ain't your show. I'm pissed. righteously angry. Every one of us should be. Because not only was this a betrayal, it was a manipulation and it was an abuse of authority to maintain power and lord it over you, to abuse you. What these Democrats do with power that they seize through duplicitous means, what they do with that power once they steal it is beat everybody who doesn't agree with them into submission. That's why it's so important to me. That's why cutting the head off the proverbial snake is so critically important. And talking about ancillary players in the story. You know, I heard people say, Chris, if you keep talking about Obama, you're going to let James Comey get away with it, and James Clapper get away with it, and John Brennan get away with it. The snakes inside the FBI are going to get away with it if you keep wasting time on Obama. We can all walk and chew gum at the same time. Again, I don't make decisions at DOJ. Pam Bondi does. Now, could it be at the end of this that I find myself every bit as frustrated as a great many of you are over the Epstein thing? Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to falsely whip anyone up in this audience and say that I am certain Barack Obama has committed treason and as such he should be tried. And you know, I'm not that guy because I'm not a legal scholar. What I am, though, is a guy who believes the focus, the white-hot, fiery focus of the American public should be on this president who ran as no red states and blue states, just the United States, this great uniter, this historic figure, who ultimately became the most duplicitous divider and whose tentacles, this toxic political cancer, continued to seep into the marrow of all of our institutions, and he staffed and stacked courts and FBI offices and CIA agents with this Marxist mentality that anybody who doesn't agree with the Democrat Marxist agenda must be defeated, silenced, destroyed if possible, thrown in jail. And we're not afraid to go back to the Civil War era and drum up seditious conspiracy if we have to. They stopped at nothing. Barack Obama and all his henchmen stopped at nothing to keep control because they knew they couldn't beat Donald Trump fair and square in a straight-up election. Here's Tulsi Gabbard saying today, I believe, this was last night, she says today, in 3030 here, more is coming. Buckle up.
We will be releasing further documents tomorrow that will refute that statement. And I would go back and point to, and we will be pulling a whole host of statements that were made by the Obama administration, by Hillary Clinton, by senior Democrat officials, by their friends in the media that state over and over again after this January 2017 manufactured intelligence document was created, that repeat the narrative. And I'm looking at my notes here. New York Times says Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in the election. Obama's CIA Director John Brennan says there is strong consensus among us to support the CIA claim Russian hackers aided Donald Trump's election. Hillary Clinton said, I would be president if not for the Russian hackers supporting Donald Trump. So there is a vast body of evidence and intelligence that debunks and refutes this statement you've just read and others coming from some of the Democrat leaders in Congress today.
Donald Trump has been sounding the alarm about this for some time. You know, you go back to the 2020 debates. Trump says that there was no transition after 2016, that Obama, Hillary, and Biden were engaged in a coup. You go back, you can find him saying it then. This is not new. From Clandestine on X yesterday, this was the reason Axios leaked that unofficial memo. The Democrats went into a frenzy over Epstein and still are trying to go into a frenzy over Epstein because they do not want to talk about this. You will note all of a sudden that CNN and MSNBC want to do nothing but discuss Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, even Barack Obama is trying to convince you that this is nothing to talk about because, after all, Epstein. It's a distraction from Epstein. Former President Barack Obama's office Tuesday issued a rare admonishment. Now, Obama doesn't really talk much these days, and isn't it interesting that he felt the need to take to a statement? The They wanted to issuing a rare admonishment of the Trump administration's claims the Obama administration planned a treasonous conspiracy. On Friday, you heard Tulsi Gabbard, what she alleged. Spokesperson for Obama said in a statement, while the office does not normally dignify the consistent nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the White House with a response, the administration's new, bizarre, and ridiculous allegations warranted one. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in 2020 in a report by the Bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, let's tackle this, because this is also what our side is engaged in. I'm sorry to say, we do have a lot of people on our side who have taken the Barack Obama lead here. And they say, listen, the initial assessments were that Russia was trying to interfere in our elections in 2016, and that they favored Donald Trump. There's no dispute about that. That's a bipartisan agreement. The Senate Intelligence Committee said that. Yes, that's true, but on a technicality. And this, stick with me, folks, this is the central point where you're going to try to be confused and rerouted in a discussion. Because I see the left trying to do it, and I'm too smart for it. But for people that, are kind of puddle deep in this, and you get into a conversation about it, and some smart guy comes along and says, you're not actually disputing that Russia tried to impact the election in 2016, are you? Have you heard that guy, Ed? You've heard from that guy, right?
Oh, of course.
You're not actually saying Russia didn't try to impact the election, are you?
Even Republicans found that.
That's right. That's to make you feel stupid. So you get knocked back on your heels and you go, oh, God, I don't know. No, I'm not saying that. I guess I'm not saying that. I guess Russia's up to no good and they wanted Trump to win. So that's to shut you up. But here's the point. The point is they couldn't and didn't do anything meaningful. It was like a $100,000 Facebook campaign. Yes, they tried. Lots of countries try. We try to impact other countries' elections. Barack Obama said himself, in fact, there's a direct quote you can also go look up from Barack Obama, who said that Trump should stop whining. He said this October 18th, 2016 in the Rose Garden. October 18th, 2016 in the Rose Garden. There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow you could even rig America's elections, in part because they are so decentralized and the numbers of votes involved. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. That was October 18th, 2016. Look it up for yourself if you don't believe me. Obama dismissed the idea that Russia could hack an election and that Trump should stop whining. And then intelligence came back from Barack Obama's own intelligence agents, and they said, look, sure, they've monkeyed around and they've tried, but they can't try. There is no evidence. After the election was over and Trump won, that's where the game began. Boys, this isn't any good. We got to make a case that Russia did, in fact, build this election in such a way that Donald Trump would win it, that he did rig it. And what happened after that, Barack Obama continued to sort of wink at the idea that, hey, look, our intelligence analysts say Russia tried to impact the election. Mrs. Clinton continued to say, I'd be president were it not for the Russians. Nancy Pelosi, they all said it, and you know it, and there's plenty of instances of it. I could play the reel. We could just play clip after clip after clip in 2017 of people winking at Trump's only president because of Russia, you know. And that became, and then, of course, there was a near 2-year investigation, and everybody knew it was fake. Everybody knew it was false. And so today they're engaged in this revisionist history where they say, hey, our intelligence said back in 2016 Russia was trying. That's all the report said. Russia was trying. I acknowledge Russia was trying. Who disputes Russia was trying? You know Russia was trying. I know Russia was trying. Baloney. This is rewriting history. And I'm not going to let them get away with it. And you shouldn't either. So the next time someone says, you don't actually believe Russia wasn't trying to hack the elections, were you? Everyone knows, everyone agrees Russia was trying to. That's not the point. That is not the debate. The point is, Russia may try, Russia may have interests, there may be fingerprints of Russia monkeying around on some tiny low level. They didn't impact that election in a meaningful way. That was the conclusion, and the Obama administration tried to leave this country with the opposite impression after Trump had been elected. That's the insidiousness of this. Don't get lost with distractions. From the Federalist, top intelligence officials contradicted John Brennan. No intelligence to support the key Russia hoax claim. Top officials working on an intelligence community analysis about Russia's interference in the 2016 election were overruled by CIA Director John Brennan, according to records obtained by the Federalist. The records are related to an ongoing criminal investigation into Brennan and other top intelligence officials for their roles in launching the Russia collusion hoax. Now, I'll stop here and say this is where a lot of people on our side say, well, that's who you should be focused on, Stigall. Stop wasting time with Barack Obama and focus on Brennan. I can do both. I'm happy doing both. We can walk and chew gum. Barack Obama at the behest of John Brennan, or John Brennan at the behest of Barack Obama. I don't care, but neither of them should skate on this just because one was president of the United States. They predicated this entire investigation on Mrs. Clinton's fake dossier. Mrs. Clinton's campaign paid someone, British intelligence, to create fake intelligence reports that Donald Trump was friendly with and colluding with the Russian government to win an election. It was all bogus. And the CIA, the top intel people inside the CIA, came to Brennan before the election and said, there's no there. This is bogus. It's a campaign piece of crap. And Brennan overruled them and said, keep digging anyway, boys. James Comey over at FBI, same deal, securing warrants, FISA warrants, to start surveilling and spying on and entrapping members of Trump's administration and his campaign team. And this investigation continued after Trump's victory. And Barack Obama himself, even after knowing the dossier was phony, Barack Obama himself said that he was committed to a peaceful transition and helping Trump transition and all of this. It was all a pack of lies. And yet, after telling the world that he was there to help make this transition to Trump smooth, why didn't he tell Trump about Mrs. Clinton's fake dossier? If he was really interested in being helpful to Donald Trump, why didn't he say, you know what? Hillary really tried to sandbag you. They cooked up a hell of a fake-looking report on you and Russia. You should know. We had a lot of CIA, FBI people climbing all over the place trying to find Russian dirt on you. Didn't happen. But that's not what he did he? Again, go back to the 2020 debate. Trump says in the debate with the Husk, he said, I didn't get any kind of transition. There was a coup attempt from day one, and there was. And so now, as we go forward, it is so clear, as we're having this discussion today in 2025, the Washington Post, nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election. You see how they're changing it? This is important to understand, and I'm sorry to belabor this. I know this audience is smart. Do you see how we're changing the focus? There's no debate. Russia tried. Russia tried. That's not what we're talking about. You said Trump won the election, and you surveilled and entrapped members of Trump's campaign and his administration and derailed an administration for 2 years and impeached an administration over something completely phony. You made it up. And rather than step forward and say this was all manufactured and made up, and we know it was, and we knew it was before the election, you let it keep happening. And co-conspirators inside Trump's administration that were holdovers from Obama continued to chip away at Donald Trump's administration using completely baseless, phony information. And so today, everybody from NBC News to the Washington Post, the memo has gone out. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about, well, Russia tried. They intended. No one disputes Russia tried. No one disputes Russia has interest in creating chaos in our elections. So does China. So do many hostile nations. That's not what's in debate. Hey, there's Chris Stigall. You know, this past summer, I went on a cruise with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Mike Gallagher, my Salem radio colleagues, and I met so many listeners like you who have been on my PhD weight loss program journeys, and I decided for myself it was time to jump in. I wanted to give this Dr. Ashley everybody's been talking about call myself. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team customize plans for your body to make weight loss simple, and they provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your whole person, and so I've decided to join so many of you. Join Sebastian Gorka, join Mike Gallagher, and all the weight they've lost, I'd like to do it myself. I've decided to call up my PhD weight loss. I hope you'll join me. Maybe we can start this weight loss journey together. Reach out, get started, tell them I sent you and said hi. I'd love to hear how you're doing at 864-664-1900. That's 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Don't forget to tell them Chris Stigall is going to start losing weight with you. It looks like they have zeroed in on one name, ladies and gentlemen, that for sure, whether you think Obama should be implicated in this, whether you think treason applies or not, there is one name that keeps surfacing over and over again, and that's John Brennan, the former CIA director, the former communist sympathizer. I say former, probably still current. 3071 to kick it off, please.
Tulsi Gabbard, you know, she may be impaired on the ethics front, certainly, but she's not impaired on the intellect front. And so I can only presume that she is doing this intentionally mischaracterizing, misrepresenting, and lying about what she has found.
Methinks thou doth protest too much. He's on the pushback tour, name-calling Tulsi Gabbard, trying to sow suspicion, much like Mrs. Clinton. I was reminded by a caller yesterday, Mrs. Clinton once asserted that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. Here's O'Reilly, his thoughts about Brennan specifically, 72 here.
So the Tulsi Gabbard drop of classified information that's now declassified, the headline in there is that John Brennan, former director of the CIA, is in trouble. And I believe he will be indicted. And the telling part of this is that, and this is, I'm quoting from the report from the Select Committee on Intelligence, the House Select Committee, is that Brennan knowingly, all right, published 3 reports containing information that was, quote, unclear, of uncertain origin, potentially biased or implausible. If that's true, and we need to...
O'Reilly goes on to make the case that Brennan is probably the guy that's going to be targeted. Now, if you don't believe O'Reilly, and you don't believe me, and you don't believe talk show hosts, maybe you'll believe Jonathan Turley, who's a very serious guy over there on Fox, Georgetown Law. He's not bombastic. He doesn't say things that he doesn't mean. In 73 here, he concurs that he thinks Brennan's the guy that's going to take the first hit on this.
And it does appear that a couple of these figures may have committed perjury. I think the most vulnerable may be Brennan, who's like a 30-point buck now out in the open. I mean, this stuff goes directly to information that he gave to Congress. It seems to be in contradiction. And so there are real questions here. I mean, people talk about, well, you can't charge Obama. That's very likely the case. He's probably protected. But these individuals, whether it's Comey or Brennan, are not protected from perjury charges if the statute of limitations has not run. They are more likely to be called again to repeat prior testimony.
So that's pretty big, and I tend to concur. I don't see any way John Brennan is not the guy that is squarely in the crosshairs of this, because there's documentation and proof that he actually effectively said, and I'll get into more detail, but there's been some outstanding reporting on this over at the Federalist, particularly. Margot Cleveland and Molly Hemingway are outstanding. They've done some deep dive reporting on this, as they had previously. They've been writing about this for years. They wrote a book on it, literally. So, while there's been extensive reporting on this already, and most of us already understand this, now even the smart set, even people that don't like to appear hyperbolic, have embraced the idea that Brennan looks pretty cooked. He knows full well what he was working with was not credible and pushed for it to be treated as credible anyway. You know, it's been 3 weeks. It's hard to believe. 3 weeks since that catastrophic flooding hit Texas, and I just cannot thank you enough, those of you that have already stepped up and helped in this campaign to help our fellow Americans, those Texans struggling in the aftermath of this disaster. They are still, as I understand it this morning, searching for 3 people, which is 3 weeks, and there are still people missing. It's an ongoing, continuing effort, and it's why we continue to work with our Food for the Poor partners. It's a Christian, not-for-profit. They're on the ground, and they are continuing to rush emergency relief kits to people throughout that flooded region. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the lives lost in this tragedy are still, as you know, being tallied at this hour. Listen.
The numbers that I have of those who have lost their lives statewide in this flooding episode in the month of July is now 135. Those who have lost their lives in the Kerrville area because of the floods is now 116. We will continue the search for everybody in every single region that was affected by these devastating floods.
So here's the deal. A gift of just $50 rushes an emergency relief kit to a hurting family displaced by these Texas floods. $100 gets a kit packed with supplies to 2 families. Whatever you can donate, it's going to make a huge impact on these men, women, and children suffering in Central Texas. If you go to chrisstigall.com, there's a Help Texas banner at the top of my page. You can make a donation right there. Rush emergency relief kits containing hygiene items, diapers, emergency medical supplies, all the essential things that these people need in a crisis are part of this kit, and you can be a part of it. Food for the Poor coordinating with our trusted partners in San Antonio, delivering all these shipments as you send in your dollars, and I can tell you they can make a dollar stretch. You can feel great about sending your money to these folks. I know that in times like these, everybody's kind of asking for your ability to assist and aid in these various. This is an organization we partnered with for a long time, and you can feel very, very good that your dollars are going exactly where you're being told they're going and being used exactly the way you'd want them to be used. You can phone in your gift today at 855-330-4673 if you haven't yet. 855-330-4673, or text my last name Stigall to 51555, and you can make that a tax-deductible gift that way at 51555. Text Stigall. Just take a moment if you can. Whatever you can do. Doesn't have to be $50. Great if it is. Great if it's more. And I'll be sharing some of the names of the folks that have stepped up here over the weekend. I get every name. Every time you go online and go to chrisstigall.com and click on that Help Texas banner and you leave your name and where you live, I read it and I get to see it, and it's so cool. I'm going to share some of your names coming up. You know, I've been discussing throughout this week at the Harrumph Society this Obamagate scandal and what it is, how to understand it and communicate. And today I kind of put a bow on it. If you haven't joined the Harrumph Society, I hope that you will, because today I talk about the significance of this and the deliberate betrayal of democracy. That was all covered. But in part 3, and that's today, it's coming out, in fact, just after the show, I lay out the problem of persuasion. How do you convince Americans beyond our MAGA circle that Obama did something very wrong? We know Obama was anointed by legacy media and academia and Hollywood and other Democrat-run institutions. He was anointed as this great unifier and this good man and this husband and father and American and patriot. Well, how do you get people to accept that Barack Obama was, in fact, none of those things, not at all what we think? It's a steep hill to climb, for sure. And it starts with hard evidence as the foundation to be clear in our communication. And that's going to take time, but hard evidence is, in fact, being uncovered. So here's where you start. You have to be able to clearly describe this scandal, which I hope I've done at the Harrumph Society, what it's all about. You got to explain it to people like they're 5 years old. What is Obamagate? Well, what is it? Simply put, it's President Barack Obama directing U.S. intelligence officials to manufacture false evidence of Russian interference in the 2016 election to undermine and spy on Trump's campaign and presidency. I want every American to hear that sentence over and over and to understand the scandal. You got to construct this in a clear, persuasive argument, methodically dismantling the perception that Obama is an innocent guy, tracing his motive, his dislike for Trump and his loyal appointees, and the opportunity, 8 years in power. and the intelligence community assessment revealed real fraud. There's a lot to this story, and the trick is not to get lost in the weeds of it with all the names. Remember, Barack Obama directed U.S. Intel to manufacture false evidence of Russian interference in the 2016 election to undermine and spy on Trump's campaign and presidency. It's that easy. And we need everyone's attention to prevent things like this in the future, helping Democrats and Never Trump voters actually see what all of this is about and safeguard democracy for all of us in the future. To do that, you got to keep it simple, stupid. The KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Declassified documents under Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, discussed in my first part at the Harrumph Society, expose a conspiracy at the highest levels of government, showing institutions were weaponized against citizens. And I explored all that in part 2. Again, here's what happened. July 2016, CIA Director Brennan informing Obama about Hillary Clinton's plans to fabricate Trump-Russia ties. That's a scheme that Obama signed off on, and it sparked a deception. The Steele dossier, which Clinton funded. The FISA warrants that came after that, which James Comey signed off on at the FBI. Memos that were leaked. Brennan and Clapper perjured themselves before Congress, inventing evidence that wasn't real. In scandals, you follow the money and evidence. You got to hold the bad guys accountable. Follow the money. Clinton laundered funds via her Perkins Coie attorneys for that Steele dossier and created a false narrative for Obama. And that was amplified by Obama. Evidence, do you need it? Declassified documents show Obama appointed loyalists like Brennan and Clapper and Comey to manipulate the system. Is Obama capable? Well, he's a smart community organizer with ideological fervor. He saw Trump as a legacy threat and despised him for it. This is what motivated the fraud and weaponized intelligence. It reveals Obama directed the ICA, falsely claiming Russia aided Trump while hiding Putin's Clinton preference. As strong as this evidence is, persuading Obama loyalists is tough. He symbolizes hope and progress. Admitting wrongdoing shatters all that. Loyalty blinds people. Media frames revelations as revenge or conspiracies, like Republicans denying Watergate pre-tape, that scandal. Social media echo chambers, bias, anti-Trump narratives compound it all, of course. Not everybody's going to be receptive. Universal buy-in is unrealistic. Partisans aren't going to budge off this. We know this, though, that Barack Obama directed U.S. intelligence officials to manufacture false evidence of Russian interference in 2016's election, to undermine and spy on Donald Trump's campaign and presidency. And the best way to explain this and sell it is to start with empathy and build with facts and transparency and action to turn their denial into awakening. Acknowledge emotion, frame as democracy defense, not an attack on the trusters. Accountability, and that protects everybody. Accountability, that's what you're selling. So a logical plan for persuasion is to pursue rigorous prosecution without overreach, base cases on proof, like Brennan's notes to Obama and Obama's approval and Comey's leaks and Clapper's perjury. Indict only for proven crimes, and then maximize transparency on top of all that. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.